Back to the occipital lobe, you've got visual blind spot. Often, you will have people living with dementia. They can't, the perception is lost. You'll find them picking things from the floor. I had a gentleman who would walk over the carpet because he thought it was a flower bed. So then we have frequent falls. He said, that's a flower. So because the carpet has the lovely design flowers in it, he felt it was flowers. So he stepped over, and he constantly walked over the carpet. And that's what he's falling over. There's a gentleman always picking things up off the floor because he felt it was dirty. For him, it's perception. He perceives it as something I need to clean. Yeah? And these are things, if you understand why they're doing what the behavior is telling you something, try to understand the behavior, not the disease. You will never understand dementia. Just understand what the person in front of you, and no two persons will share the same behaviors, because we all are different. Can I have the next slide, please? So I will talk about different types of dementia. So on my screen there you have Alzheimer's dementia, which is the most common dementia. And Alzheimer's, the picture there is showing you a little black spot on it. So that's actually the brain and how Alzheimer's dementia affects the brain. So Alzheimer's dementia affects the brain by clogging the arteries that feeds the brain with blood. Because like our body, every part of our body needs blood supply. Blood supply takes oxygen around. And equally your brain. And if you ever at any point choke, you know how it feels when you choke. You can't breathe. It affects your whole body. You lost control. For all those who have probably sipped some water too quickly and gone down the windpipe, you know how it feels. That's what's happening to your brain. Because when the blood supply is depleted from your brain for whatever reason, that cells start to die. So with Alzheimer, it forms a plaque. So you've got a tiny, tiny arteries in your brain that needs blood to feed it, to supply you with oxygen, so that you can function as a human being. All of you is listening to me. All of you is paying attention to me. Or if one of you start feeling a bit dizzy because the weather's too hot, you're not going to hear a word out of my mouth, you just hear sounds. Because you can't retain anything. And that's what's happening with the brain. So every time the little tiny particles get blocked, they're hungry. There's no blood, there's no feeding. That area is started damage. And if we go back to where we talk about the brain, if you think about it, that if that area of the brain is damaged, the functionality of the brain also will go. So I can't coordinate. I don't have a clue where I am. I don't even remember my own name. I can't remember my date of birth. I can't recognize the person standing in front of me. You know, I got a resident, they're married for 60 plus years. Now she doesn't recognize her husband. She keeps saying, oh, that gentleman, I don't know why he's hitting on me. He's offering me tea every morning. Interestingly, we just smiled because she can't remember him. Then when she do remember him, she said, oh, he's too old now. I didn't know him like that. It's, you know, it's every day is there's a different conversation. And sometimes I just walk down smiling. Because once he's not her husband, he's hitting on her, he's offering her tea. And then when she do recognize him, he's too old, he can't be her husband. But that's the reality. So with Alzheimer, it forms that plaque. And it, obviously, if it forms a plaque, it's like if you think about the road, you tar the road, it changes the brain. It damages that area of the brain, so it damages also the function. Vascular dementia. 95% people who live with that vascular dementia may have had a stroke. So that causes vascular dementia. It's when we know somebody has a stroke. The depletion of oxygen also, depletion of blood supply, With that depletion, the brain cells will die. Like, for someone who may have developed pressure sores, if you ever heard about the word pressure sores, or ulcers, is when the blood supply is cut off from that tissue, it breaks down. That's what's happening in your brain. That brain's become dead, no longer functioning. Can we move on to the next slide? Then you have the dementia with Lewy bodies. Lewy bodies are kind of protein that is in the brain. If that part of the brain is damaged also, and the protein builds up and it forms a plaque again. So, that will then cause the brain to get damaged, and the functionality of the area of that brain will go. Yeah? You get your frontal temporal dementia. So we talk about the frontal lobe. And that's the dementia where people's behavior tends to become challenging for us. Because sometimes people with vascular dementia, they will lose their mobility, they will lose their speech, because if you think it's someone who has stroke, they tends to one limb become weak, they can't walk, they lose their speech because it affects that part. But with the frontal lobe dementia and temporal lobe, the person may become so aggressive. It changed the person, so the once nice, sweet, loving sister that used to come to church certainly become the devil in the home. Because she's throwing everything. She's tossing everything. She's hitting out at everyone. Because she no longer able, her perception is gone. She cannot relate with what she's doing. Because the frontal lobe responsible for perception is the executor of the body, is the one that makes the decision, is where most of your dignity lies, is the one that will tell you, oh no, you shouldn't walk naked, because it's not acceptable for society. But when you lost that, it's okay, you walk around naked. You don't want to wear clothing. And you have people who living with dementia who will do that, because they're no longer, the intimidation is gone. They no longer can relate with what's right from what's wrong. Because they don't have the ability to weigh up decisions. They can't make decisions. Yeah? Then you have the mild cognitive impairment. Most of us may have it by now, because we can't remember where we put the keys. We go into our wardrobe. I mean, for women who like shopping, they discover there's a tag on the coat, so they don't remember when they bought it. So maybe we have mild cognitive impairment. How many of us don't know we put our glasses? I mean, I'm always searching for mine. Funny enough, lots of us have it on our head and we're still searching. I have it on my chest and I'm still searching at the team laughing at me. Well, Hayes, if you put your hand here, you might just find it. And that's where mild cognitive impairment comes. And that's where you can start understanding someone who's, early stage dementia. They call it early stage of dementia. People with dementia will progress based on the medication they're on, B, maybe even the lifestyle. Because if someone is alcoholic, of course it's going to damage the brain. Because it damages the liver, it's going to damage all of our organs of the body, it affects the brain. Yeah? So those are the types. You've got mixed dementia, which I haven't put there because it will take forever. Mixed dementia is someone who's living with Alzheimer's, then they may have a stroke, so they end up with vascular and Alzheimer's. Or people can have Alzheimer's disease and Lewy bodies dementia. Now, dementia is diagnosed based on a scan of the brain. That's how they diagnose it. They will diagnose it by scanning the brain, and they will see which part affected. So they will see the dead cells or the dead area of the brain. Can we have the next slide, please? So, that doesn't show too well. Anyway, so that's just the statistics that I've done in 2013. And I'm sure that has increased. Because Alzheimer's is the biggest type of dementia. And that's from the Alzheimer's Society. So, sorry, love. No, it doesn't. Because, as I said, someone may have a stroke because they have a heart problem, or or they have some comorbidities, you call it, or some type of disease, and then they develop a vascular dementia. It doesn't have to lead to Alzheimer's dementia. It doesn't. From my knowledge and research I've done, so there's so many research out there. And as Alzheimer's Society develops they do different research because they're trying to find some cure for dementia. But if reality as Christians, we were born to die, and we will grow old. And if we're growing old, our brains will grow old. The cells will die. Can we move on to the next question? Sorry, is that? So there are other factors that can mimic dementia. There are lots of factors that can mimic dementia or can be misdiagnosed as someone living with dementia. And a lot of time people see, okay, oh yeah, this person is confused, so they have dementia. Equally, they may be diagnosed with dementia, but in mild dementia. But one of those factors is causing them to have a more versatile behavior, a behavior that is challenging to you. And I said the word behavior that is challenging to you because the person is communicating to you through their behavior. It's just because you can understand the behavior, it becomes challenging. Not they are challenging you. You can understand what they're saying. So we got delirium. Can be misdiagnosed as dementia. People living with dementia do have delirium because they may have an infection. They may have some kind of side effects from the medication they're taking. They can some have some, all sorts can cause delirium. Depression. How many times people are depressed? But we haven't seen the depression. We only see the persons living with dementia. Can someone living with dementia be depressed? Yeah, they can. Because what we fail to realize, because the person's living with dementia doesn't mean they don't understand what you're saying. And often you will have family dispute, and the mom is lying in that bed, or they're on the phone talking about the mom. I don't understand, because the mom is not communicating doesn't mean she doesn't understand what you're saying. And they become depressed. They become withdrawn. Well, all we can see is the dementia, not the person. Because doctor said she's have the dementia, so she doesn't know what she's doing, and she can't tell you, I don't want a cup of tea, I only need some coffee. Because mom never drank coffee. That's what you know. Maybe if you spend some time with mom, you will know she drank coffee before she met dad and before you arrive. And this is what we need to know. Speak with the person. Be there with the person. Try to understand the person. Don't try to let them live in the life, your reality. Your reality is not their reality. This is their reality. She might have never drank coffee indeed, but now she's sitting with 3 other young ladies at the table enjoying a cup of coffee. She tried it. Of course she liked it. She's changed. We're all changed. I'm not the person my mom brought me up to be. I'm totally different. At 18 I left my mom home. I started my own life. Of course, at this age I'm still disagreeing with my mom because I'm not the person she wants me to be. I'm who I am. So why do you think you become the person for your mom when she becomes 80 and 90? Oh, my mom can't wear that dress. Oh, that doesn't look ladylike. Well, no, she feels like 18. Let her wear it. Yeah. So depression. And why people become depressed? Why do we become depressed at times? Because people make decisions for us that we don't want them to make. So we become depressed. If you're living in a marriage and your husband is controlling, wouldn't you be depressed? If you have a wife controlling you, wouldn't you be depressed? So why your mom wouldn't be depressed when you start taking control? And why would they lash out at you when they just want to be themselves? So this is where we need to understand pain. All of us would have experienced pain at some point. How do we behave when we have pain? Some of us are good at managing pain. Some of us will have pain and will not communicate at all about it. Some of us, the thought of pain, we haven't even experienced it yet, just the thought of it. Just going to the dentist, having an injection, taking your blood, is just the thought of pain. And what happened? You become depressed if possible. You won't sleep the night before if you need to have a blood test. And it's not the blood test you're scared of, it's the pain. Someone who's living with dementia may be experiencing pain. So that's why they behave in the way they behave. If you relieve the pain, then you may not have the behavior. So think, when you see the behavior, what is it telling you? And you will be able to cope with the person you're supporting and living with dementia. Just don't think about what they're doing now. Just try to understand what they're doing, why they're doing it. It will help you. We talk about urinary tract infection, which is so common among elderly, all of us. So I probably had just half a glass of water for the day in this hot weather. How many of you had you required a amount of liquid for the day? No one, possibly. And then, you know what happened? We start feeling tummy ache, we end up in the toilet often, frequently having urination, because we didn't drink a lot of fluid. And the elderly, they are very prone to UTIs, because their intake of fluid reduces as you grow older. You become more inactive, you don't need to sweat, so you don't get thirsty. Is that true or not? As a baby, your mom clocked every 2 hours, she makes sure you had your bottle. You get older, she allows you to choose when you want your food. So you play all day, you forget you need to eat. Because if you're anything like my siblings, food is not important. We just play. And if my mom gave me that food to take to school, I throw it off way on the road, because if I get home back with the food, of course we'll have a spanking. So I throw the food away. My sister will hide it under the bed. This food is not important. So there you go. So we're not eating, we're not drinking. Dehydration. So dehydration, of course, will link into urinary tract infection. So with an infection, you'll get delirious, you'll get pain, also increase your level of confusion. Someone who's living with dementia may have that. But just because the signs are not visible, that doesn't mean it's not happening. Think, okay, has Dad had enough fluids? How Dad is eating? Sorry, my dear. Yes, because it's a disease that affects the pancreas, it affects the insulin supply, and of course if your blood sugar is constantly high, it will have an effect on your body. And people who with diabetes, of course, that their diets are not managed properly, they will end up with early stage. They might end up with stroke. Because with diabetes, if your blood glucose is too high, you can end up into coma. So that will then affect the brain. Sorry? Yeah, so it is, yeah. And that's why I said there are other factors. Because most of us may be diagnosed with something at some point in our life. Some of us have a pacemaker, some of us have heart conditions, some people are hypertensive, and it will, the brain, the central organ in our body that control the functioning of the body. Yeah? And then the last but not least, drug interactions. In the olden days, we called dementia senility. What we do? We medicate everyone on earth. All sorts of antipsychotic. People are drooling. People can't eat. People are not, because if you give them antipsychotic, what is going to cost them to do? They just sit in a corner. Oh, they're mad women and men. I remember when my grandmother was unwell. I just graduated as a nurse. I didn't do dementia training in my country. I did mental health. I work at a psychiatric hospital. What we did, we called the medication CPZ, carbazine, whatever it is, and we give them. Now, now we've moved away from more medication to more activities, engaging people, and actually looking at the other factors that may mimic this dementia. Instead of saying it's the dementia that is causing the behavior. Sometimes it's nothing to do with dementia. There's so many, the weather is hot today. Can you imagine elderly sitting in a chair, unable to reach for a glass of water, unable to tell you they're thirsty because they lost the ability to speak, and no one gave them a glass of water for 4 or 5 hours. So then they become confused because of dehydration. And once they become confused, the behavior will change. Some become aggressive, some may just become placid. They're just there. They don't have the energy. So can we go on to the next slide? So just quickly synopsis of actually what is delirium, because I can see everybody's tired, it's quite hot. And of course, delirium is a state of confusion. And it's because, of course, with delirium, it affects the brain. Yeah? Because people can become delirious if they're dehydrated. They can become delirious if they have an infection, not just UTI. You can have a chest infection, you can have any infection. It can lead into delirium, even drug overdose, or people can react to certain medication that can cause delirium. And those are some of the things that someone may exhibit if they have delirium. Can we move to the next slide? Let's conscious of time. Sorry? Parkinson's to do with the movements of the body. Yeah, it's not a dementia. It's to do with the movements of the body. It's totally different. Someone who is living with Parkinson generally is still able to memory and everything. It doesn't affect the brain. It affects coordination. Does that answer your question? Oh, thank you. And we talk about depression. You can't prevent dementia. As I said, we all grow older and things will change. Our hair get gray. We can't prevent it from getting gray. We can't prevent dementia because dementia is the brain. And as we grow older, our cells, and with disease and medication, will affect how the body functions. And once you lost that regular flow of blood supply to the brain cells will die. So there's no way we can actually prevent it. Well, the reason why it was labeled as a mental health is because it affects your memory and because of the behavior. And this is where now psychologists and geriatricians and all sorts is trying to move away from the idea of dementia being a mental health illness, because it's actually not. Because people with dementia behave in an aggressive manner. And actually we call it in a distress manner, because it's not really they're aggressive. What is it they're going to communicate to you? Because we don't understand them. Because I'm just trying to tell you something. I'm telling you, I need to go and pick my kids up from school because that's the reality for me. And you're telling me no, and you lock the door. I'm an adult. Why are you locking me in? So what I'm going to do, I'm going to start throwing things around. I'm going to hit out. You know, I'm an adult. You came into my room to wash and dress me. But instead of talking to me, you take the towel off, you rip it. Hang on. If I do that to any one of you, you'll punch me. And that's the truth. If I turn to Pastor now and take his shirt off, he'd probably punch me. Yeah. But this is what we need to realize. The elderly is lying there. I mean, I'm a manager for a care home. And if I walk into any one of my residents' room and I meet the team members talking and not talking to them, it's a problem. Because if that gentleman there, and sometimes when you look at their life story, I am way no educated to these people. They're scientists, they're doctors. And you stand there, you're talking about your night while you're washing and dressing the gentleman. And of course you forget that he's lying naked in front of you. You take that dignity away. I remember once, years ago, I was a clinical lead at that time, where a gentleman punched one of the carers. So I had to investigate the matter. And did I tell him he was wrong? He was right. And I gave the example what she did. She went into his room, take his continence pad off with a glove. She then took the pad off, took it to the toilet, came back to him, take a tissue and wiped his mouth. Didn't change the glove. So what he did, he punched her. It was wrong. He was right to physically hit her. But look, let's think about the reason why he did it. That's a glove with soiled feces on it. Are you wiping my mouth? Well, he didn't have speech. He couldn't talk. That's the behavior. Someone will turn around and say he's aggressive. He hit this team member. He had no right to hit the team. Of course he doesn't have a right to. But he couldn't tell her what she was doing because he couldn't speak. So we physically tell her. And this is what we do. We forgot the person we're looking after. All we think about is the dementia, because they don't know what they're doing. They have no clue. Suddenly they lost sight and they lost hearing. No, dementia does not affect the sight and the hearing. It doesn't. So I'm seeing what you're doing. Just because I can't form this sentence to tell you not to do it or explain how I'm feeling, doesn't mean I don't know what you're doing. And the way they communicate is becoming challenging to you. Yeah? So quickly on what depression is, and of course all of us at some point, now they're saying even children going to school at 2 and 3 is depressed. That's a going topic in the UK. I never heard about depression as a child. What do I know about depression as a child? Every child now will tell you I'm depressed. My 10-year nephew talking about depression and say, excuse me, are you working? Because they want a toy, and if you don't give them, well, I'm depressed. I never heard the word depression until I did nursing. Can I tell my mom I was depressed? Because even her didn't even know what depression was. So, and people who live with dementia do get depressed for many reasons. They are aware they're not in their home. One of the most difficult things any human being can do is give up 40, 50, 60 years of their life and move into a little bed, a room. Come on. Why would you think they will be okay? Or why do you think it's going to be easy for you to tell mom and dad, oh, it's time for you to go in a care home? I had 5 wardrobes of clothing. That's what they told you. And you expect them to downsize into 1 wardrobe, and if possible, you have 1 coat. But that's the reality. So when they get into the care home, or even in the conversation and the planning, they become depressed. They don't talk to you anymore. They hate you. Oh, they will say all sorts. My kids just want to dump me in the care home. Oh, they took all my money. You know, all I did for them when I was young, now they put me in the care home for somebody to look after me. Some of them don't speak to the kids at all. Because they're so angry. That's depression. Exactly. It progresses. And you know why? Because they're depressed. So it's giving up their life. The ones who made a conscious decision to move in the care home live longer because they're happier. They accept it. I got a gentleman right now who's giving me his notice to move. And so I had a meeting with the wife and the daughters. And I knew they didn't agree for him to move. However, he gave me his notice. I accepted it. But I knew he's not going home. So I told the daughter and the wife, be prepared. One day, he's not going to speak to you. He's not going to. Because what's going to happen, because he's already said he cannot manage his finance in the care home. Okay? He has mild cognitive impairment. He knows exactly what he wants. But of course, the family, the wife is not that well. What's interesting, the wife is more unwell than him. She doesn't want to come in the care home, because when I mentioned it, I said, I told you he's coming in, and then when he's settled, you come in. Oh, no, I'm not coming in. So then the daughters came to me and said, Mom, he's not coming in. So I told them, I can't stop him. By law, I cannot keep him. If he wants to pack his bag and go to that door, because he has capacity to do it, I can't stop him. So I applied for the deprivation of liberty, but I know they wouldn't give it to him. So here, we will have a challenge in the next 2-3 weeks. And the law states, if someone has capacity to make a decision, they have to make that decision. You have to put the most reasonable restrictive measures in place. And that means he can go home with a carer, if he financially able to do it, which he seems to be. That family is going to have a problem. That dad is going to hate the 2 girls. I told them, be prepared. That that's what's going to happen. So his behavior towards them will change. They will turn around and say, oh, the psychologist said that, and this person said that. And decision, capacity assessment is decision specific. So you can't say dad lost capacity and suddenly he can't make decision if he wants to wear a tie or he wants to wear in the hot sunshine. He's allowed to, because he's understanding it's hot. He can relate back to you, and he's saying, I want to wear it. So they have a right to make unwise decisions. And this is where families often find it difficult. Even us, we find it difficult. My mom is not living with dementia, and sometimes I do find it difficult. Decisions with her, you know. So yes, let's move on. So this is the reason. Oh, if you think about all the things that we human beings, we enjoyed, we like, when it's been taken away from us, we will end up in a depressive mode. That's what's going to happen. So actually, not the dementia no longer is the problem, it's the depression. And if we can relieve the depression, the person will be able to live longer. Yeah? So we talk about pain. I'm not going to talk too much about pain. I think everyone understands what pain can do, because we all must have at some point had some level of pain. It can make us confused. For those who give birth, of course, all sorts. I've seen women done all sorts when they had pain, you know. Urinary tract dehydration, the drug interaction. I spoke about that before, because of course with lots of drug, you know, people, sometimes you look at the drug chart and they're on 17, 18 different types of medication. They have some level of drug interaction. It seems, especially in the UK, everything you have, a problem you give medication. You only have to say your head hurt and the doctor wants to give you antibiotics. Pointless. Because antibiotics is not for every illness. And a lot of time the doctors just give people pain relief because they said it's easier to give it to them than have the arguments. I was watching the program they used to have in South London, GP Behind Doors. And one of the questions the narrator asked, whoever it is, why doctors are so easily and find it so comfortable to give people pain relief. He said it's easier than have an argument. So they just give it to them. And then they have cocodamol, paracetamol, then they might go up to morphine, then they might go up to Oromorph, and what do you think is going to happen? And they will end up being confused. So we need to look at all these things. So when you look at someone, look at the little things that may be causing them to become so challenging to you. If someone is on, let's for instance say, an antidiuretic. It's a hot weather. If someone is on antidiuretic, they will end up going to the toilet frequently because it's to lower blood pressure, it's for you to pass water. Well, what's going to happen in the end if you keep going to the toilet and you're not drinking? You become dehydrated. And then mom and dad behavior change, or auntie behavior change, or wherever you're looking after behaviors change. So we need to look at those things. Can we move on, please? So the main thing for me, and I'm sure in, throughout my communication with you, is about communication. As I said before, try to understand what the person is telling you through their behavior. And if you get to that point where you're trying to understand what they're trying to tell you, you may not find, I'm not saying it's not going to be difficult, but you may find it much easier to support the person with living with dementia. Much, much easier. Because the time you stand there is arguing with them and tell, no, it's not time for you to this. No, you had a cup of tea. Reminding them how many times they had a cup of tea, it's not going to help. Because all they want is a cup of tea. And how many times they say, well, you just had breakfast. Well, I know I didn't have breakfast. Just give them some breakfast. You know how easy it will be to go and get a toast with marmalade, cup of tea, put it and get on with your life? That's reminding them they just had a cup of tea. And it's the truth. It's easy to tell the person, okay, let's go out, because they want to go out. Because by the time they get down to the door, you'll say, no, I don't want to go anymore, because I'm tired. And then they will walk right back to their room. But if you told them no, seeing that door is closed, they're going to hit the door. They're going to hit you. They'll push you away from that door. Open the door once it's safe to do so. But we more worry about the living with dementia, they can't do this. They can do anything and everything. We're scared. Oh, mom is living with dementia, so she can't cook. Stand with her and fry an egg. You'll see how many residents have faced change, or, we're at work. Change when we have breakfast morning. But they're frying eggs. They're making whatever they need to make. Because they used to do it. They had children. They prepare for their husband. Get them engaged. So communication, yeah? We said it affects, dementia affects communication in many, many ways. If we just move on to this next slide, please. How can we help the person to understand communication from you? It's easy. Just get yourself into their world, not bringing them into your world. Your reality is totally different from their reality. And believe me, the world today, even you who do not live with dementia, cannot get into reality with the youths. My brother, assure you reality is totally different to the reality of the little boys behind there. So why do you expect someone living in dementia to live in your reality? We live in worlds apart. We live with all this technology. 4-year-old, 2-year-old now want phones. They don't play with dolls anymore. A matter of fact, this is why my nephew, we had to get him an iPad very soon because no one can have their phone. Because your calls come in, you swipe it off. Because he's listening to his cartoons. You can't get them to read book. No, the other day we had a function in church and the youths present, and one of the youths said, the poem he said, look a little closer. Because what you're trying to say, don't see us as the youth that is very disrespectful, that the youths are not hearing us. We don't live in your reality. Just look a little closer. And why he's saying that is because as parents, he said, all of you have expectation of us. We all have expectation of ourselves. We don't even know what the expectations are. Just look to us as a youth, as the child you bring forth, not your expectation, because your reality is totally different to their reality. They live in a world with all sorts of pressure. The news that they listen to, I never listened to it. Matter of fact, you have to go and buy a newspaper to read the news anyway. Now it's popped up on their phone. So they're hearing about all the gunshots, who get killed. I never knew who got killed. I didn't have news. As a matter of fact, you had to knock the television for you to get signal anyway, if you're that lucky. I never had a mobile phone until I was 25. My nephew was only 2, and he had an iPad, because we need our phones to use. So that's the reality. Can we communicate with the youth the same way we communicate when we were kids? And I'm not that old. So what about my parent? So equally is the same thing with someone living with dementia. The reality is totally different to yours. Yeah? So help them. When you're talking to someone with dementia, don't talk like 9 notes per hour, like me. I'm just talking. They won't understand a word. Break it down. Use visuals. Would you like to have a cup of tea? Get a cup. Show them. Maybe make the tea and actually show them. Because all of us, we are visual people. I'm sure all of you can relate that when you see something, you tend to remember it more than if someone read it out to you. So there's no point of you standing there with your dad at 80, 90 or your grandparent and read out the will of 20 pages and expect him to remember. Unless you're trying to take what he had without him knowing. How do you expect him to remember that? Because he was a lawyer. Dad, you were a lawyer, you should know. You were a doctor, you should know. No, he's not at that moment. Break it down. Visual. Yeah? Make contact with them. Listen more and talk less. If you listen more and talk less, they will be able to understand you. A lot of time you have to write. Because as you get older, your hearing will go. Your vision will go. A lot of time we give people, I can't read this without my glasses. I can read miles away. But if you put this in front of me now, I can't read it. So I can see everything on that television there. But the one in front of me here, I can't see. But then you're going to give your parents or your grandparents something to read and expect them to understand. But you forgot. They were going to Specsavers since they were 10. or they were wearing the glasses since they were 18. How many times we do that? We forgot that we used to wear glasses. Or we forgot to wear hearing aid. Oh yes, but we put the hearing aid in the ear, but we didn't check the battery. Our mom is not understanding me. Mom is distressed today. She can't hear you because you haven't bothered to check the battery wasn't working. Yeah? So these are little things we need to do when we're communicating with someone. We need to make sure that minimal things that seems, insignificant things are the most significant things and most important things when you're communicating. Can we go to the next slide, please? So I got a time it is now, lost track. I got a video I want to show you, and it's called the Vera framework. Is there any questions by the time it comes up? Everyone looks tired. I do it's very well. Because we already focus on the dimension, we lost focus on the person. And because we lost focus on the person, nothing else exists. Because in our head, we're living with, how many times you hear people say, my dad got dementia, you can't make decisions. I mean, Friday, it was a Thursday when I had the meeting. My dad has dementia. Yes, but he wants to go home. He knows what he wants. Yeah. It's calming down. Are you able to get it up? Yeah, we need to just...
Vera is a cycle of interaction, really. The aim of it is to engage with people and to try and join with their world in a stepped set of approaches, so it's quite easy to remember. So the first stage is V, which means validate the person. So you're thinking of the person as a whole person, and you're using your non-verbal communication and also things you might say to support the person in their point of view. So that's V. E is to engage with the emotional content. So not what the person is saying, but the emotion behind what they're saying. So your aim is to try and connect with how the person might be feeling through what they're saying, even if the two things aren't very directly connected. So that's E, engage with the emotional content. R is reassure, so that's where you're trying to say that things are okay, and that might be where you explain a little bit about your role. And A is activity, and activity is where you try and join with the person to do something with what they've spoken to you about. So that could be talking more about the subject, or it could actually be joining in some kind of movement or activity to go and look around, to get your bearings, for instance, find out where you are, or it could be talking more about things or asking more questions. But basically the aim of the activity is to connect and do something with what the person has been speaking to you about.
Bob is a 68-year-old gentleman. He was formerly a plumber, retired 2 to 3 years ago. Bob is married. He's been married 50 years to a lady called Mary. She visits Bob regularly, every day since he's been admitted. He was admitted onto the ward 4 days ago. Today Mary hasn't visited, and I've gone to see Bob in his room, and he's presented as clearly agitated and confused. I've wanted to engage with Bob, and to do this I've used the Vera framework. Hello, Bob.
Hello.
Are you looking for something?
Yes.
Yeah?
Yes. Yes.
It's really hard when you can't find something that you're looking for.
Yes, it might be here.
Yeah?
Here.
Let's have a look.
Is it there?
Oh, that looks like just some sheets, Bob.
Yes.
Shall we put them back?
Yes, but it might be under there.
Okay, I can't see anything, but this light is quite difficult to find things in.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
But it was here. I think.
That inhibition. But what we do, we go with her. We've just wrapped her in a towel. She spent all day in her nightdress. And there are days when you can have a politician communication with her, because she can tell you about all that she did, and how many times she and Margaret Thatcher had an argument, and how many men she put in their place. So she's always been in control. She was always a vocal person. Why should she be quiet at 94? Of course it's distressing to others, but she has an identity. Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. So we need to identify the person, keep their identity. They may have lost their hair along the line when they get older, but doesn't mean they're not the same person. You know, they might get fatter, slimmer, but they have an identity. Doctor, professor, Mr., Mrs., keep their identity. I hate when people email me and say hi. I don't respond. I'm not hi. I don't respond. It doesn't matter who you are. Do not email me and say hi. My name is Hazel. And that's how I behave at work. I don't care who you are. I had an argument with the HR director the other day. He said, why you didn't answer my email? I said, did you email me? Oh yes, I sent you 2 emails. I said, who did you email? I said, what date you emailed me? I said, but you didn't say hi, Hazel. You say hi. I don't know who you're talking to. Could be anyone reading that email. If you said, hi Hazel, I know you're talking to me, then I'll respond to you. So if you come into my room and you don't say, hi Mrs. Joseph, I'm not going to answer you. If you walk into my room and take my clothing off, I'll hit you. That's what they do, because they have an identity. And that's reality. Yeah? We all have the need to be included. So while you have the dad is sitting there, mom and the 2 daughters making decision where dad should live, he should be part of the conversation. He built that home. He paid the mortgage. Should be part of the discussion, whether or not you remember. Include. Because when you don't include them, they have a perceived idea you don't love them. Then they have a behavior behind that perceived idea. We all do it. Perception is one's reality. That's my reality, because that's how I perceive things to be. It's not your reality, but I worked 60 years in the mines or wherever I did. I built my house. I married to you for 65 years. And then you're having a meeting in a room separating from me, deciding what you do with my life. Just because the doctors say I have dementia. We will face it sometime in our life. People are going to make decisions for us. And that's why the law changed. Unless the person is deemed to lack capacity, you no longer can make decisions for them. In the olden days, as soon as you're married, wife make decision whether you're going to live or die. Husband make decision whether you live or die. That's changed. The law changed. If you don't apply for power of attorney for health and welfare, you'll make no decisions anymore. You had a blanket approach of enduring power of attorney. It's no longer existent. Because a lot of us makes decisions in our interest, not in the interest of the person we're talking about. Mom can't have a cup of tea because she never drank tea. Those are silly things you will hear. But it's significant to the person who wants a cup of tea. Oh, my mom never drank alcohol. She was a Christian all the time. Okay, really? She drank it before you were born. She's just going back into that reality because she was 18 when she was out clubbing. She became a Christian at 25. But now she's living as an 18-year-old who was clubbing. So she wants a bit of alcohol. Oh, they can't have it. Why? Ask yourself the question, why? Inclusion. We forget they can go out to all the family dinners that they used to go out. Mom, I'm going out to dinner with my grandchildren, and mom is sitting in the care home. So mom suddenly can't sit at a table at Selfridges or wherever they used to go, or Claridge's or wherever the name was. Her mom was posh once, you know. That's the reality, people. So when you're coming and the parents start behaving towards you, you don't understand the behavior because you didn't bother to include them in your decisions. My mom don't talk to me anymore. I hear that every day. Half of the time I know why the mom don't talk, because I would ask the question. The carers and the nurses, they know so much. I'll share a story. There was a couple, husband and wife. The husband was always aggressive to the wife. He separated them at one point until he hit a carer. And then we refer him to the psychogeriatrician who came in and talked to him, psychologist actually. What he revealed, his behavior throughout, and the daughter never spoke to the dad because of the behavior. But what was it? What was it? In the end, he never told his wife, never told the kids. He witnessed at age 12 his mom committed suicide, and he never talked about it. But what he did throughout his life, become the father of hell. So when he revealed it, then everybody starts seeing him and not the behavior now. He had more sympathy than even me. I was sorry for him too. He lived with that pain, married with that pain, never shared it with a wife, never shared it with the kids, until we actually separated the wife from him. And then because he talked about it, he was totally different. People do go through childhood traumas, all sorts. They marry with the trauma, but they never share it with anyone. Then they meet a point where they'll no longer have that capability of suppressing it, so they then express it. And when they start expressing it, you can't understand, because you have no idea, or you haven't eaten, because you're then thinking, why are they doing it? And you're not spending that time. So yes, include them in everything you do, whether they remember or whether they repeat it. Inclusion is important. All of us want to be included in a society. All of us is a member of the church. If the church held a function and we weren't invited, we'll be upset. That's Christian. If Mary had a party and I was Mary's friend in church and sit next to her and she didn't invite me, I'm upset. I don't talk to her when she comes to church. We got all of that in church. We get upset so quick in church. It's okay. Well, we don't, you know. Sometimes I say it in church, it seems like none of us go to work. Because it's different rule in your workplace to church. Everybody's sensitive in church. I'm not preaching, I'm just talking. It's true. As I told my church colleagues, I'm not employing none of you. Because I'm not coming to church next day for you to talk to me. Because I'm going to discipline you if you do something wrong at work. I'm not your friend. Yeah? So why we then decide we're going to make decisions for our parents, our grandparents, our mom or dad, and then include them? When we want to be included in everything, we want to know what pastor said. We see pastor talking to that lady in the room, we want to know. I'm sorry. Let's move on to comfort. Yeah? But if we think about these things when we're living it, reality, think about someone who's living with dementia. We suddenly, they sit in a corner there in a wheelchair, and you talking to the manager, you talking to the doctor. They don't know. Or they're not for resuscitation. Did they tell you they want to be not to be resuscitated? You don't even ask him. And these are things. And then you want, sorry, my throat is going. And then you want to know why they become. Can you go back to the other slide, please? Yeah, so comfort. We all need comfort. Yeah? We all need a bed to sleep on, clothing to wear, water to drink, food. Food is important to a lot of us. The food we eat is important. And I know as a nurse, someone has a stroke, they got swallowing difficulty, they used to eat chicken, now we tell them they need to drink soup. Because you're going to choke. And it's true. And then will you wonder why? I'm an African, I don't drink soup. I use plantain, jollof rice, all sorts, wherever. And now you're telling me to mash my food up and give it to me. Am I going to eat it? They don't. So we need to be able to understand why they're behaving the way they're behaving. Because they lost the only thing they enjoyed all the years of their life, their food. You know? Are we not trying to make anything? Now, I'm a Caribbean woman, and now you're telling me it's sandwich. No, I don't eat bread. I don't eat bread. I don't have bread in my house. I don't eat sandwich. And then I meet 92, and somebody's telling me I need to eat cold sandwich. Not even sandwich, cold one. I remember when I came in this country, growing up as an Advent, I never drink tea, never had Coke. And that was the first thing presented to me. 2 days later, I discovered I eat pork. I cried. I was 33. I cried. Suddenly I realized all sorts would grow out of me because I eat pork. Because that's what I was taught. It's unclean. Now, doesn't matter. You know, comfort, attachment, love, occupation. Thank you so much. Occupation. We looked at the video with Vera, he was a plumber. He needed his occupation. He lost his tool. How often you see people still want to do their job? Engage them in it. If mom was a nurse, get her a stethoscope. Engage her. We engage our residents in the GP ranks. And believe me, they will be able to tell you a lot of the diagnoses I don't remember. But they were doctors. You know, I got a pharmacist. As soon as he see me, his back hurt, his knees hurt. I said, but you know you can't drink all these tablets. Because he felt I'm the doctor. He's the pharmacist. So we talk about the tablets. I said, so what do you want to have today? Oh. I said, but you know you're a pharmacist. We get him help us come tablets. Make it up as it go. Because you reduce the agitation, you reduce the anxiety, you reduce the distress behavior. Yeah? Love. Who don't want to be loved? Is there anyone in here who don't want to be loved? Show them love. Show them you're still the daughter, the granddaughter, not the busy husband and busy wife. You marry them for some reason. You know, that's all they need to be loved. All of us in this room wants to be loved. All of us get angry when we're not loved. You get distress. You know, the sad thing about we cry our eyes out when we lose the loved ones, but when they're alive, we're not worrying about them. Oh, we're dancing in front of the coffin, rolling. I mean, I come from the Caribbean, you can pay them to cry. They'll cry for everybody. But when they're alive, you know, my grand, when she had, well, we call it that time senility, I remember my mom was screaming and shouting. I didn't know how to deal with it either. When I came to the UK and my aunts, we all learned about dementia. We do feel sorry we didn't understand what she was doing because she was walking up the street in her night dress, going looking for her sisters. You know, once we found her on the main road, of course we didn't handle it properly because we expect her to know it was wrong. I wish I could relive those days. I lost those moments. And she died. All of us today, we talk about it. We had the knowledge, we were able to support her differently. We would have taken her up in the morning because she used to get up 5 o'clock every morning to cook. She brought up 9 kids. by selling food at the school. Why would you expect to sleep at 75 in bed at 5 o'clock when she lived her life getting up every morning at 5 o'clock? So every morning at 5 o'clock, the door is open and she's out. Because she's going to work. She's preparing. She's knocking all the pots and pans and my mom is getting angry. But she was only getting occupied because she has an occupation. And that's why they open the door and go out at nights. Because imagine being a security. You sleep in the day, you awake at night. Being a nurse, you sleep in the day, you awake at night. So now I'm retired and you want me to sleep in the night. It doesn't work like that. I'm going to work. It's inconvenient for you, but it's an occupation for the person. So engage with them. Try to understand the behavior. Don't lock the door and put the keys away. I know it's hard to get up at 5 o'clock and walk your dad out. But maybe find something else for them to do. Yeah? Let's move to the next slide, please. And we can skip it because those are just the things we need to do. Yeah? So finally, I have one more video to show. And I love this video. I could watch it every day. It's very interesting.
When people are very old and deteriorated and no one enters their world and they're just sitting there, they will withdraw inward more and more, and their desperate need for connection is all now inside. And if a person is all alone, even if they're very, very deteriorated, there's a longing for this kind of closeness. Mrs. Wilson? Hello. You want me to sit? Can you see me good? Gladys Wilson is a wonderful example of a person who is in the phase of repetitive motion, where people use movements, repetitive movements, because they don't have any more speech or very little speech, but they have human needs that need to be expressed. You're crying. Crying, you have a tear right here in your face. You have a little pain, you want me to touch you. You're very sad. Can you see me? Is it scary? Are you afraid? And if this person sits with their eyes closed, rocking back and forth, and maybe there's a tear coming down, there's a need there. Here. There's a little tear that's coming out. Do you feel it? You feel a little tear? If you gently use touch, and I touched Gladys Wilson for the fingertips right here on the cheek, is where the mother usually touches a child. If you touch an infant there, it looks up. And every cell remembers where it was touched by the mother. And often that person knows, even if they can't say a word at that moment, they won't talk, or they don't want to talk, but there's a communication. And that person is no longer alone. Can you let me in a little bit? You think? Just a little? You think I could be with you and Jesus for a minute? Jesus loves me, this I know, for the Bible tells me so. I used music, because when speech is gone, music, especially with Gladys Wilson, it was religious music, because there's emotion tied to it and safety tied to it. So I used her old church songs. Jesus loves me. Yes, Jesus loves me. Yes, Jesus loves me. The Bible tells me so. What I did was, when she moved, I moved with her. And when I was singing, because she didn't sing with me, so I matched the intensity of my voice to the intensity of her movement. And pretty soon, for a split second, we became one person. Jesus loves me. Yes, Jesus loves me. The Bible tells me so. So at one point, when she got very quiet and very peaceful, and my voice became very quiet as hers and very peaceful, and my breathing slowed to her breathing, she pulled me to her, and I moved with her. And for her, at that moment, I believe I was a symbol of her mom. Can you open your eyes now? Do you see me? Feel safe and warm? Yes? Can you sing with me? He's got the whole world in his hands. 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 He's got the mothers and the fathers. He's got the mothers and the fathers in his hand. He's got the mothers and the fathers in his hand. He's got the whole world in his hand. The breakthrough doesn't happen every time. The person will not always open their eyes and look at you. But if you keep trying and you keep centering yourself and really look at that person and really mirror their movements, maybe not this time, but the next time you come, you'll have a communication. You feel safe? You feel safe? Yeah. With Jesus? Yeah. And me?
That lady hasn't spoken for years. She sat in a care home. Everybody's busy doing what they're doing. No one is engaging with her. And she just sat there, locked into herself, depressed. And all they did is went back where she's sitting in her past. She speak. That's what we need to do. Yeah. Final slide. People will always forget what you said. They will forget what you did. They will never forget how you made them feel. So don't be too busy. Don't be too caught up in everything else. Don't focus on dementia. Focus on the person. That's what I leave with you today. Dementia is like any other disease. It's like cancer, diabetes, hypertension. We don't focus on those things. When someone is dying with cancer, we focus on the person. Why not with someone living with dementia? Stop worrying about